Wait, don't skip this video, because what you're about to hear might steal your sleep tonight. For centuries, the people there have warned one thing. In the darkness of the Appalachians, never follow a voice, unless you can see the face that's speaking it. They had heard rumors about strange disappearances in the Appalachian backroads, but none of the four friends believed them. Nora, Ethan, Mark, and Lila only wanted a peaceful road trip. No drama, no stress, just mountains and cold fresh air. But the moment they crossed into the deeper, older part of the range, the atmosphere subtly shifted. It felt as if the forest paused, listening to them. That night, as the group set up camp near a quiet ridge, the temperature dropped unnaturally fast. Ethan mentioned he felt like someone was standing behind him. Lila laughed it off, but even she felt uneasy. The trees seemed too close together, the silence too perfect, as if nature itself was holding its breath. And then came the whisper. At first, they thought it was the wind slipping through the branches. But the second time it came, the whisper felt sharper, almost shaped into a word. Then another word. The voice was faint, fragile, and dragged through the air like something drowning. Nora froze when she heard it say her name. Nora. She turned instantly, shining her flashlight into the dark woods, but nothing moved. No footsteps, no animals, just cold emptiness. Then, one by one, each friend heard the same thing. First softly, then clearer, and always in a slightly different tone, as if the whisper was trying to adjust itself, trying to copy a human voice but getting it just a little wrong. They huddled together, telling themselves it had to be the echo patterns of the mountains. But the whisper came again, closer this time, slipping between them like a long, thin breath of icy air. I see you. None of them slept that night. The whisper continued until dawn, fading only with the sunlight, as if the thing creating it retreated into the dense forest shadows. But the group didn't know yet. The whisper didn't come from the wind. It came from something old waiting in the Appalachian dark. By morning, exhaustion had already set in. The forest felt different in daylight, brighter, almost comforting, but the group couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. They decided to leave the area, but that was the moment they realized something was wrong. The trail markers they followed the previous day were gone. The wooden post with a red arrow was now snapped in half, lying on the ground as if something had deliberately broken it. The carved trail symbols on the trees were scratched over with fresh gouges, deep, uneven claw-like marks that didn't look like they were made by any animal they knew. Mark brushed his fingers over the scratches. The wood fibers inside were still wet, still fresh. Something did this last night, he whispered. As they walked, the forest layout felt subtly rearranged. Paths that should have led downhill now curved into thick brush. A small stream they crossed had vanished entirely. It was as if the land had shifted overnight, bending itself into new shapes. Then Ethan suddenly stopped, staring into the trees. I saw someone, he said breathlessly. Standing right there. Tall, too tall. The others looked, but saw nothing except dense foliage and shadows layered between trees. The air felt heavier, thicker, as if saturated with something unseen. Lila tried to use her compass, but the needle spun in slow, confused circles. Even Nora's phone GPS flickered, showing their location jumping miles apart every second. For people, lost, with something making sure they stayed that way. As they pushed forward, they heard broken branches behind them, delayed, echoing, almost copying their own footsteps. They turned repeatedly, but never found anything. The forest had changed. The rules had changed. And something out there was following them, matching their pace, just far enough to stay unseen. Hours passed. The forest grew darker though it was only noon. The trees seemed older, their bark blackened, their branches curled like fingers gripping the air. Then, through the mist, they saw it, an old wooden cabin. It shouldn't have been there. It wasn't on any map. The structure leaned crookedly, with moss covering half the roof and broken windows staring outward like hollow eyes. A strange symbol was carved above the door, something circular, with sharp lines branching out like veins or roots. Nora stepped inside first. The air was colder inside the cabin than outside. A stale, rotting smell lingered, but oddly, the place didn't seem abandoned. Dust was scattered, yet some objects were disturbingly untouched. A lantern with clean glass, a chair with no dust, and a desk sitting perfectly still in the corner. A torn journal lay open on the desk. The handwriting looked rushed, almost desperate. Pages were filled with accounts of voices in the woods, footsteps at night, and something learning the writer's name. But one entry stood out, written with fresh ink, stark and sharp on the page. Do not answer when it whispers back. The ink hadn't dried yet. That meant someone had been here, very recently. Ethan felt a shiver crawl up his spine. Maybe they're still around, he whispered. Then they heard a faint thud above them. The ceiling. A slow dragging sound followed, like something crawling across the attic floor. Mark stepped toward the attic ladder, but the sound stopped abruptly, as if the creature froze the moment it sensed them listening. Silence. Heavy. Wrong. Before they could react, the whisper returned, but this time it came from inside the cabin walls. Soft. Close. Hungry. They dropped the journal, backing away as the whisper curled around them like invisible fingers. Whatever had whispered their names last night had been here inside the cabin too. That night, fear settled into each of them like frost. They avoided sleeping, but exhaustion eventually forced their bodies into restless half-dreams. The whisper didn't return, not at first, but something else did. Ethan was the first to wake up. Or rather, he wasn't awake at all. He rose slowly, eyes half open but unfocused, and stepped silently toward the trees. His breathing was calm. Too calm, as if he were being pulled by invisible threads. Nora opened her eyes and saw him walking away. She whispered his name, but he didn't turn. He walked deeper into the woods, following a faint, broken whisper that grew clearer with every step. Come closer. She shook the others awake and they rushed after him, but Ethan moved with unnatural speed, slipping between trees as if the forest parted for him. Then the whisper changed. It stopped calling him. It started calling them. Leave him. He is mine. Don't follow. When they reached the spot where Ethan disappeared, they found only his footprints. Perfectly clear, leading straight into a thick wall of trees. But the trees there were wrong, bent inward, forming a tight circle around the last footprint, as if swallowing him. Mark tried to step inside, but the air in that circle felt wrong. Heavy. Electric. His skin prickled painfully the moment he got close. Then they heard Ethan's voice. But it wasn't right. It echoed too loudly, bouncing unnaturally between trees. The tone cracked at the edges, like a voice being stretched or imitated by something that had never used vocal cords before. Help me. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Nora screamed his name, but it only made the forest react. The whisper deepened, turned almost irritated, almost alive. Ethan was gone, not taken violently, but lured. And whatever had taken him wanted another. The three remaining friends stumbled back to their campsite in shock. Every sound in the forest now felt foreign. Every shadow stirred with possibility. They huddled together, whispering arguments and theories, anything to drown out the memory of Ethan's distorted pleas. But as night came, so did the voice. It began with a single sound, a soft clicking, like bones tapping together. Then the whisper emerged, but it no longer attempted subtlety. It called Mark's name with perfect clarity. Except it wasn't perfect. The intonation was off, too smooth in places, too jagged in others, as if the voice did not understand the emotion behind the words it borrowed. Mark, come back. It was Ethan's voice, but Ethan couldn't be alive, not in any human sense. The voice began to split, echoing from multiple directions. Then it layered, several versions of Ethan speaking at once, overlapping imperfectly like bad audio recordings. Some whispers were delayed, some too fast, some too deep. The mimicry wasn't a gift. It was a trap. Lila clamped her hands over her ears, tears streaming. It's not him. It's not him. The voice shifted abruptly, now sounding like Nora. But it wasn't her. It sounded like someone trying to impersonate her after hearing her speak only once. Then the forest answered with Mark's voice, repeating his last sentence back to him in a broken, stuttering echo. The creature wasn't just mimicking. It was learning, studying, improving. And the more afraid they became, the clearer the voice grew. The friends realized something horrible. Whatever hunted them didn't communicate naturally. It stole voices, consumed them, wore them like disguises. And Ethan's voice was only the beginning. They finally saw it on the fourth night. After hours of hearing footsteps that were never close enough to see, they reached a clearing surrounded by ancient trees. Nora lifted her flashlight, and the beam caught something tall standing between the trunks. At first, they thought it was a tree. Then it moved. The creature unfolded its limbs slowly, one joint at a time, like someone assembling themselves. Its limbs were too long, arms dragging slightly along the ground, legs bent in reverse angles. Its skin was pale and stretched tightly over its frame, making the bones underneath clearly visible. But the worst part was its chest. Where a rib cage should be, there was a hollow cavity, wide and deep, echoing with faint whispers. Human whispers. The voices of those it had taken. As it stepped forward, the whispers grew louder. Ethan's voice mixed with dozens of others, overlapping, pleading, screaming. The creature tilted its head unnaturally far, studying them. Its face had no eyes, only faint indentations where eyes should have been. Its mouth was a long, thin slit stretching almost to its ears. When it opened, the sound that escaped wasn't a growl or roar. It was a collective gasp of stolen breaths. Then it spoke. Nora. The name came from deep inside its hollow chest, echoing like multiple voices trapped in a cave. It mimicked Mark next, then Lila, each voice clearer than the last. It had learned them. It knew them. The creature bent down, placing a long, finger-like limb against the ground. The earth beneath it shriveled and blackened. The trees behind it seemed to lean away in fear. Then it stepped closer. Every instinct in their bodies screamed to run. This wasn't an animal. It wasn't human. It was something ancient, something the forest served, something that collected voices and wore them as trophies. A predator shaped by silence and hunger. Mark was the first to run, and the others followed, sprinting through the forest with everything they had left. Behind them, the creature moved with unnatural speed, its long limbs slicing silently through the brush. It did not need to chase loudly. Its quietness was far more terrifying. The forest seemed to shift in its favor. Paths twisted, closing into dense walls of branches. The trees grew darker, thicker, almost alive. Every direction looked the same, endless shadows and twisting roots. Then the whisper returned, deeper this time. Stop running. The voice cracked in places, merging Ethan's tone with Nora's, then shifting to Lila's. It was blending them, perfecting its mimicry. Nora tripped, scraping her knees, but Mark pulled her up. They pushed into a clearing, only to realize it was the same clearing they had left minutes ago. The forest was looping, trapping them in circles. Lila sobbed, "It's playing with us." The creature emerged behind them, rising slowly from the shadows like a living nightmare. Its hollow chest echoed with panicked voices, voices begging to be released. Mark made a final desperate move, running straight into the thicker woods rather than following the trails. Surprisingly, the creature hesitated, almost as if the deeper part of the forest restricted it. That gave them a chance. Hours later, Nora broke through the tree line and collapsed onto an old gravel road. A truck stopped, and an older man pulled her inside, promising safety. But as the truck drove away, she heard something faint. A whisper, not from the woods, from the back seat. "Nora, you left them." The creature wasn't behind her. It was with her. And now, in the human world, it had new voices to steal and new names to learn. If you think the story is over, remember this. The whisper in the Appalachians never truly ends. Where one voice falls silent, another rises from the darkness. And perhaps, your name is now echoing somewhere in those shadowy woods. If you want to see the next chapter, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon, because when the next whisper comes, you might not have time to run.